All right, everybody, welcome back to another high caliber, action packed episode of the Crypto 101 podcast. I'm your co host, Bryce. As always, joined by my buddy on the other side of the country over there in the great state of Florida, Brendan Viehman. How are you doing, man?
Bryce, I'm doing fantastic. As per usual, it is an especially great time to be a crypto enthusiast. The markets are recovering in fantastic fashion. And,
Absolutely.
With every kind of recovery, we like to just give everyone a bit more insight into what's happening in the background, all the new technologies and features that are getting built on top of blockchain technology, which is why we are very excited to introduce today's guest. Isn't that right?
Man, you couldn't have said it better. It's a great time in the market. It's a great time for builders. We've got Tobias Schubotz, who is the co-founder of Safe, joining us today. Toby, welcome to the show, and how are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Bryce and Brandon. Excited to talk about Safe today.
Absolutely. Look, before we even dive into Safe, let's just get you acquainted with the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you were doing before co-founding Safe, and kind of what drew you in to the crypto industry.
Definitely. So I have an engineering background. I'm a software engineer by training, but pretty early on in my career, switched to product management. Reason is I'm still excited about all the technical details, but I was interested to understand why we're building things, whom we're building for, what are the issues, what are the challenges, what works, or more often actually what doesn't work, and hence, got
the laundry list of things that don't work in crypto.
100%. I mean, yes. I mean, some things do work, but plenty of things to improve, I guess, as well. And yes, before co-founding Safe, I was a product manager at Gnosis. Gnosis is one of the, I would say, OG crypto projects building on Ethereum. And maybe it helps to also explain a bit that background because yes, Safe is one of the projects that were started at Gnosis because Gnosis as an early project, there wasn't enough infrastructure available yet, even for the simple things they wanted to do. So ultimately, Gnosis is a prediction market project. But for that, you need, on the one hand side, market mechanisms. That's why they started what would ultimately become CoSwap. And on the other hand side, you also need something to store your assets in. And that's how Safe came about. And yes, myself, why I am interested in blockchain, it's this first, it's two things I would say. One is the open source nature, building in public, really being able to, if you can, verify everything down to the low level details, something which is exciting me because it doesn't mean it means you're not building a black box, but something really verifiable. And on the other hand side, really building something which enables true ownership of assets, and happy to dive into that one later. And Safe spun out of Gnosis in early 2022 after a community vote of what was or what still is Gnosis DAO. And yes, maybe that's what I would start with. What's my background and how I came to Safe.
That's perfect. And for those out there who really, maybe not have not heard of Safe yet, tell us a little bit about the mission and really, what is the main goal with Safe?
Mm-hmm. We're on a mission to unlock digital ownership. Now, in order to understand what that actually means, I think we have to take a step back. And so let's consider blockchains, public blockchains, such as Ethereum or EVM-based chains. They're essentially this distributed ledger, and they enable several things. One of them, trustless transactions of accounts. And that means there's no single intermediary that manages everything that you or any user would have to trust, that could then also ultimately censor. That doesn't exist. It's really this trustless execution environment. In order to achieve that, cryptography is leveraged. So there are keys or passwords that are required to authorize any action on blockchains. And so Safe is sitting on top of that. So between that blockchain and ultimately end users or the end user applications. So you can think of Safe as this self-custody infrastructure provider And also, I said we are on this mission to unlock digital ownership, and ownership is not limited to financial assets. There are many more things. It can be music, it can be arts, social media, collectibles are a big thing, much more. And really important to us is the self-custodian nature. So we really want to provide safes with the power to actually own and to actually enforce this ownership of the assets. And just to give an example, actually, it's also one of the examples that brought me to crypto in the first place. Where I'm a music lover, so basically was also an iTunes user, and at some point realized, you don't actually own these MP3s or whatever it was or is. Actually, if you then switch to something like an Android device, well, you kind of lose access to your own, to your whole library. And it's similar with many other businesses and business models on Amazon. If you're a Kindle book reader, you don't actually own these books. It's more like you rent them out somehow. And that's definitely not ownership as we imagine it. And we want to actually improve that. And also existing self-custody solutions don't really aren't yet ready for mass market. So just I looked it up before, in Q1 this year, more than 200K in digital assets, coins, tokens were lost just due to lost passwords, lost private keys, or compromised private keys. And with Safe, we're actually improving that because we go beyond that simple all or nothing access control model of these passwords, of these private keys.
So is this what you would call a smart account? Because I've seen Safe reference this idea where they, you all are talking about how you envision a world where every account is a quote unquote smart account. So does a smart account exist on this layer like you were talking about, between the blockchain and the end user, where it essentially improves the almost like the infrastructure for these accounts? Because like you said, leading up until this point, it's kind of been this all or nothing for accounts, especially when it comes to keys and access to wallets. It's been a barrier to entry for some people who just are not as familiar with blockchain tech. And that scares some people off. Other people really like it because they like that all or nothing access. So I guess just walk us through exactly what you envision when you're referring to these smart accounts.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Currently, most DeFi infrastructure, most blockchain apps are built with these classic private key-based accounts. They're called externally owned accounts, or EOAs, in mind. And that has these restrictions of the security model. And so when we talk about smart account, it's expanding on that. For those interested, Vitalik Buterin actually has this great blog post on the 3 transitions that Ethereum, or probably any blockchain with similar challenges, has to go through in order to be successful. One of them is scaling. That's being done on Ethereum via L2s. Another one is privacy. Currently, we have this pseudo-anonymity where, yes, you don't know who is behind an account, but once you know, you can basically know everything about them. And the third one, it's the one relevant for us, it's the transition from the security model of the EOAs towards smart accounts. So it's literally anything beyond private keys. And it's really use case, it depends on the use case, which access control model is actually suitable. And so Safe, back then at Gnosis Safe, I would say we are a pioneer in the smart account space. We started out with something called a multi-signature wallet. So it's this, I would say, natural expansion of the security model, where instead of having just one password, you actually have 2 passwords, and both accounts, post passwords, post private keys, need to sign a transaction before it gets executed. So that's actually really good. Also, for teams, when you have, let's say, the 3 of us, we want to somehow manage digital assets, and we don't want that one single person can just do whatever they want, right? So we would introduce, each of us has an account. So let's say three private keys, but two of us need to sign a transaction before it actually gets executed. That's at the core a multi-signature wallet. That's what eventually became Safe Wallet. That's what we still have. It's actually our flagship wallet used by a number of teams. Is actually one of the backbones also of the Ethereum DeFi industry and other projects. And that's the one part. But we don't want to have that limited to this one use case. So it's also extendable, the smart account, meaning we could say there are things such as modules, which then for a specific use case just also extend that specific security model. An example is a daily limit. Let's say we want to enable a fourth person to spend, let's say, every day up to $100 without requiring our consent. So that's what we have live as a transaction limit module or daily limit module, actually. Still, that's all Safe Wallet. Eventually, we also started Safe Core because we realized that across the stack, teams were integrating with Safe, starting with the smart contracts. Then there is a backend infrastructure part, and then also the front end. And on each parts, third parties, other teams were interested to collaborate. And so Safe Core is that collection of SDKs, of contracts, of APIs, which can be used. So anyone can build their wallet or their application for their specific use case on top of the flexible smart account that Safe provides.
Yeah, and I mean, it's at the point now where there's over 200 plus ecosystem projects that are built on this Safe smart account standard, right?
That's right. Yes, Safe has an ecosystem. It's actually all the way back from when Safe spun, or when inside Gnosis DAO it was discussed to spin out Safe. It was really one of the core requirements, and actually for us one of the main goals to keep this ecosystem because it is like we don't believe in walled gardens. We want to build out in the open because you benefit so much from a third party building on top of your systems because this strengthens our systems as well because we get feedback. And so yeah, by now there's more than 200 ecosystem projects that integrate across the stack. We call them also safe builders. And actually, maybe just to highlight a couple of use cases of
that'd be great.
Popular projects. There's WorldCoin. It's a project focused on decentralized identity. So there's it's this privacy preserving proof of personhood system, ensuring that a single person doesn't have more than one account also, but essentially ensuring that also one person has that one account. It's one example. Another one is Gnosis Pay, where you can actually, it's one of these nice projects, in my opinion, that bridge the gap between crypto and the non-crypto financial world by spending your crypto with a Visa card. And then maybe last but not least, third project that I want to highlight is Fileverse. Essentially, it's a non-custodial G Suite, Google Suite workspace competitor, building on top of Safe, with all the requirements and the goals of self-custody in mind.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like you guys work with, obviously a lot of different protocols and projects. And I'm curious, outside of Ethereum, which I know you guys got your start on Ethereum, and I know maybe even some of the EVM compatible chains you guys are maybe on right now. Are you guys planning on developing on Solana or any other chains?
So far, we're focusing on EVM-based chains exclusively. The reason is there's plenty of challenges there, and it really helps us to focus on that. Like we are, like security and trust is at the core of Safe, and we're really good in that on EVM. Solana, other type of chains, they definitely also have their use case, and potentially in the future we could look into expanding. Currently, no plans though. However, inside the VM space, there are already plenty of chains, like new L2s popping up regularly. Also, I believe the space is moving to a situation where there's also more short-lived chains where they would just start, they would run for a while, and then they would stop eventually when that need isn't there anymore. Initiatives such as the Optimism team, or also like Arbitrum, they are working on these systems where it makes it really easy for developers to spin up their own chain. And so the safe contracts are actually live on, I don't have the number ready, but more than 100 like chains. In our UI, we support more than 20 chains. So besides Ethereum, the popular ones are Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, and a couple more. And we are regularly adding some because I mentioned Safe is this backbone of DeFi, and actually it's a requirement for some projects to launch on a new chain because they need safe wallets specifically in order to manage their protocols. And so we get contacted a lot by these teams building these networks to add safe support. And yes, we're rolling out on a regular basis to new chains.
Yeah, I think one of the cool takeaways from this is, basically the way that Safe is utilized with all these projects almost varies on a project to project basis. It's not necessarily like cookie cutter in the way that you described it, from how you're working with one specific project to maybe with what you're doing on WorldCoin, as you said, which I think is really cool and unique. And there's a lot of like versatility in the way that this stuff can be used.
Yes. Also, it really depends on the partner on how we work with them. I have two examples there, one for Safe Wallet, the other one for Safe Core. On Safe Wallet, one of our collaborations is with Sygnum Bank. It's a Swiss bank, which has pioneered like one of those hybrid custody solutions for their institutional users. And so hybrid custody means you have some aspects of the self-custody space, but then also, depending on the use case, you have some aspects of a centralized custodian, which is, depending on the user, also fine. I mean, not everyone is comfortable 100% to focus only on self-custody. So that's why we launched in collaboration with them, in partnership with them, the Safe Recovery Hub, which enables Safe Wallet users to choose from a variety of recovery options. This could be your own secondary account, your friend's account, but also it could be an account controlled by a bank, by Sygnum, which you would have to do potentially KYC in order to authorize or to identify yourself against them, and then so they can help you recover. All with delays, all with time limits, so they won't be able to just take over your account only when you want to. And the other example on the infrastructure side, there we're typically more collaborating with the developer type of users. We recently collaborated with this project called Rhinestone on building an adapter for the modular smart account standard called ERC 7579. Really technical term for this standard that really tries to standardize the fact that there's not this one account logic to rule all use cases. So essentially you have a core, yes, but you can extend it via modules. And so it's co-authored not only by Rhinestone, but also by ZeroDev or OKX. And yes, it's just a great foundation to preserving interoperability between different types of smart accounts.
I love it. I think it's super fascinating, and the market clearly agrees. You guys already have over $100 billion of TVL that your safe accounts are securing. So I guess my question is from your guys' perspective, where's the most vulnerabilities found in, the modern day sort of standard crypto wallet setup?
It's a good question. I hope not many vulnerabilities are found because I think as a space, as a crypto space, we definitely have to work towards a future where there aren't on a regular basis hacks and exploits in the news. And so even today, there was some news on a bridge related to the Li-Fi protocol that got hacked or exploited. I actually don't know details yet, but it's every single one of them is concerning because it means that users are losing funds, and these are real funds, real users. And towards your question, I think I would respond to like what we do is safe to prevent that, and maybe extrapolating that to some best practices that we as a crypto community should apply. As I mentioned before, trust, security is really, really important to save. And over the years, there hasn't been any critical bug in the safe smart contracts. And so what we do there is our development processes on the smart account level, but also above that, follow some guidelines. Definitely, that there's always this 4 eyes principle. We never ship or put non-audited code into production. Actually, we also have this rule that we need 2 independent audits. We have a bug bounty process in place. We also have an incident response process because even in case should something happen, sometimes it's really crucial to be fast and to try to implement countermeasures. Now, with Safe as this self-custodial wallet, there's actually there's no master key or something. So actually, users are in control. There's nothing centrally on the smart contract level that we could do there. But it's not only limited to the smart contract level. Actually, also above that, the front end is almost as crucial because the front end is what users interact with, and so security it's good UX means also good security. Users need to understand what they are signing. So I think we have still way to go when it comes to explain in human readable, human understandable terms what a transaction actually does.
Yeah,
there's some transaction checks that are happening automatically, and so transaction simulations actually on Safe Wallet. We are collaborating with a project called Redefine for transaction risk checks, and there we can actually already detect some malicious happening. So actually, users need to confirm, yeah, I still want to proceed, and so I think these are the things which we need to just use on a more wider scale. And then also really every project or space, we need to prioritize security and rather move slower in that regard. That means also at Safe, we first have stuff live on a test net. Then, we also get audits. Then we have it live on a production network for some time before we actually make it available inside the interface. So these are just some things that we do, and because it is always it hurts whenever a vulnerability is something which has been found before in a different fashion in another protocol. So whenever there's something where there's no precedent, okay, still not good, of course, but we definitely shouldn't have just yet another re-entrancy attack or something. And so this is I think where we definitely as a space need to improve, and I hope we can be a role model with Safe here.
I think that's great. Immediately I'm kind of, when you're saying all this, I'm curious, do you audit projects before you partnered with them? Like before you go through everything, do you do a proper audit?
As Safe, it depends on what type of partnership that actually is. Definitely, whenever there is a smart contract integration, we don't audit ourselves. Like, we are not an auditing company, but we definitely check if the team has proper audits in place. And also, we look at the reputation of teams. We know in this space there's also many anonymous teams, many actually also reputable anonymous teams. So it's not something where we need to actually know the clear names. It's actually about just the history. And so we would always delay some integrations whenever we have doubts. We need to kind of like wait some time. And so this is what we do. And still, that's a challenging part about crypto and about building a wallet. Almost any transaction you do, can be disastrous if it's the wrong one. And that's also why it's safe. We really, like, with a safe, we can actually build access control beyond this, all or nothing model. So we are moving towards solutions where you don't hand out access to all your wallet, but just to a specific part. I mean, classic examples are the ERC20 approvals. They have their own shortcomings as well. But something like this on a more general access control level, where you actually limit control to your assets to the specific part which is required for the application you want to use, and not just to everything. So this is also what we try to do via SafeCore to improve all these challenges around vulnerabilities, about lost funds.
Yeah, I'm curious, have you ever found something when you're going through this process? Maybe it's a project that reaches out to you and they're like, hey, we want to do something together. Maybe it's a project where you found them and you're in these early stages. Have you ever come across something and maybe found something potentially concerning that is a red flag to you and been like, I don't know about this anymore? Maybe it's something simple. Maybe it's,
and you don't need to say any names. We don't need to throw any particular project under the bus, but just keep, in general. I think that's a great question.
Yeah, there's no real specific projects or finding that comes that comes to mind here. But I think I would somehow repeat the same thing. It's about providing feedback more into the quality of code, of documentation, of comments. Because while we do have a great smart contract team, me, myself, I'm not a smart contract developer. I will have a very hard time figuring out smart contract exploits. However, by providing feedback to the teams, hey, these are best practices. You should have this bug bounty program for responsible disclosure. You really should make sure that your documentation is right, and so on. We enable then others, researchers, white hats, to kind of tap, to make your that allows them to then read the code more properly, because we don't believe in security by obscurity. No, we actually, on purpose, make our code open source. We actually explain what is happening there. Of course, that makes it easier to find bugs, but that's the whole point. Only that way we actually learn. And so that we should really embrace as a community. And because I think it's a strength. Because, there's this saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go as a group, go together. And so I think it's a great example underlining that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And very, very well explained, and it makes a ton of sense. And, one of the things that's kind of intersecting with crypto very broadly right now is AI, right? And I know people are coding with AI and people are exploiting bugs with AI. Do you guys integrate AI into your platform, your protocol, your token, anything like that?
Indirectly, I would say. So AI is a great tool, and for sure, when developing AI as a support, actually, I would say there's a number of team members that use AI tools for sure. Now, specifically on the tech side of things, I would say there's a couple of advantages and couple of shortcomings. So AI can tap into the vast number of experience doing software engineering in Web3 and before. So AI knows about the typical vulnerabilities. I would say they are able to probably catch 80%, like some number of vulnerabilities. That is a help, right? And also, it can help with something like fuzzing, actually just trying out random stuff and see if it works or if it's actually a bug. So that's great. And so AI can definitely replace the, let's say, bad engineers, because those are the ones who are just executing, what is known. But currently, I would say it's not able to replace the ones with great knowledge, which actually think about how systems work together, because, again, AI taps more into existing knowledge. And then the current popular AI models are more the generative ones, which, generate something, and either it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So you can always prove the presence of a bug, but it's harder to prove the absence of a bug. And so currently AI can't really replace proper audits, and also can't really replace some mathematical proofs that you can do that your code is correct. Like at Safe, what we do is we formally verify the smart contracts, and this is something where AI is a help, but it's not a replacement just yet. And also, you were asking about some red flags or some like what I would like things that I noticed on other protocols. Actually, one thing is whenever there's something centralized, whenever there's a master key concept, something definitely an AI can detect, even if it's not super obvious. And that's definitely something we flagged also to other projects, because this is always the single it's a problem. And at the very least, there shouldn't be a master key. There should be a master safe, so that at least mitigates some of the issues. But still, it's not super great. And any type of centralization there is definitely something we have flagged with other projects as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen that crop up on many of the different hacks. I think the one that comes to mind was the Ronin Bridge, where some of the private keys were compromised, and the North Korean hacker was able to just drain all the money. And many such stories. But kind of bringing it back to Safe and some of the amazing things you guys are doing. I read an article. I think it was about gas stations. Could you tell us and for the listeners, this is kind of a new crypto concept where you can have the gas station, maybe smart contract, pay your gas fees, so you don't have to always top it up with more Ethereum. But I'm not sure if I botched that. Could you kind of explain us what's going on here with these crypto gas stations?
Also, taking a step back first here, concept of gas it's about a transaction fee. So blockchains, we talked about it earlier. It's this technology that allows trustless execution of transactions. And there's this decentralized network. It needs to be paid. That's done via transaction fees. On Ethereum, they are called gas. And this is actually required because only that way you can preserve and keep all those security assumptions of the network. And so anyone starting their application, wanting to build for users that eventually have to make transactions on chain, will have to ask the users to pay transaction fees. They could also pay transaction fees on users' behalf. That's one use case that smart accounts enable. But then also, these funds have to come from somewhere. Even if you don't build directly on Ethereum mainnet, which might be too expensive for your use case, even on an L2, at some point, it adds up. And so we launched this initiative called the gas station, the Safe Gas Station, where we also here partner with other chains, and we offer free gas credits to developers, to applications building on Safe. And so it is we partnered with Polygon, offering distributing $200,000 worth of gas credits, and also with Gnosis Chain, where it's 50,000. And it is really a way to help new applications get started, because I'm a product manager for several years, and I know that usually, well, you make a plan, you define the problem you want to solve, you define the solution to your product, you know how to reach your users, you have some kind of a model in mind, a business model eventually, and then you start, and usually it doesn't work. Of course, there's a couple of lucky ones where it just works, but usually you have to iterate a couple of times. And so that gas station program is really about helping the projects bridge this initial phase so they can actually try out the use case they have in mind, because crypto doesn't have yet sufficient proven use cases, and we don't want these projects be blocked by this by transaction fees.
No, I think that makes total sense. When you look at like operating costs and overhead costs, it's going to be different for every company, not just crypto companies, not just like, a specific vertical. Every single vertical of all these different companies and industries that exist, they all have different operating costs. Some are going to be more focused on electricity. Some are going to be more focused on labor. Some are going to be focused more on cost of goods and manufacturing. And for crypto, a real, cost here is gas fees. And it's going to be even different for every blockchain, just to kind of go and show that it's not the same for all of this. And so by easing away some of those costs and some of those overhead costs, you're right, it allows for companies to focus on the product, to focus on the infrastructure, because we know that one of the big visions of Ethereum is just continually reducing gas fees. We've seen the roadmaps that kind of work towards this. And if you can ease projects away from that concern, even if it's only for a couple years, I think most of us can agree that Ethereum gas fees should be heavily lower in a couple years than where they are today. And we've seen improvements on that in recent years. So I love that. I think it's a great incentive for companies to focus on what matters, and that is the underlying infrastructure and building, quality services that we can relate to our everyday life. So I love it. I think it's great, and I think it's really empowering. Another one of the cool things that I saw here is that you have this feature that you all have encouraged users to create wallets with emails and not seed phrases. And I'm sure that there's a lot of listeners out there going, what do you mean by that? You have to have a seed phrase to create a wallet. That's like wallets 101, right? But this is something that we've seen become a little bit more popular, especially in the last 12 months here, where you can now create wallets with emails and not necessarily need a seed phrase. So, I'd love to have you just kind of expand on this topic, how it's possible, and maybe just even the pros and cons of something like this.
Definitely can comment on that. And we see the security, the access control also on a spectrum. And many users, especially the people new to crypto, they will have to get started also somehow. And email login is something people are used to from the Web2 world. And so it is a way just to create an account. Under the hood, of course, that email login is connected also to a private key. Typically, like the service provider there uses some kind of multi, it's called an MPC solution, multi-party computation. That means also there it's not this one entity that has access to your account. It's multiple. So it is actually one part which is connected to your email login, and then there's another part held by this third party, and so they can't really execute transactions without you authorizing the transaction via your email account. Now, if it's Google login or another social login, ultimately you're still using a login by a centralized entity, which is, Google or whoever the other social login provider is. Hence, that's not the end goal we're working towards. It's just the first step. And so as users gain experience, as maybe also the account value grows, then we would prompt users to add additional security mechanisms, to maybe add another factor, not only email, but maybe just to stay in something in the realm that they're used to, maybe have a 2FA via SMS. Now, that's still same issues with the centralization risk, but eventually we would get them more accustomed to something more like truly self-custodial, where we would, for instance, educate them about a hardware wallet, and so they can remove ultimately that email login and truly be in the self-custody realm. And maybe also something to highlight there, that hardware wallets, or maybe also many of the other wallet providers out there, we don't necessarily see them as competitors with Safe, but more as partners, because I explained earlier this concept of the multi-signature wallet. These different accounts, these different signatures have to be made with other wallets. And so hardware wallets, for instance, are a great way to hold these accounts there. And so yes, this email login is a step for towards the future where we transition users from the traditional banking space towards something more decentralized. And it's another great use case that smart accounts actually enable, because you can actually replace the access control mechanism, something that would not be possible with the private key based accounts, and something where really smart accounts show.
Yeah, it's fascinating. No, I mean, there's so much to unpack, but I guess the closing question here is, what are the next pillars of security that the industry really needs to nail down before we get that global mass adoption?
Yeah, it's implementing best practices, definitely ensuring that hacks aren't happening anymore. I think it's a key thing, because no one wants to use systems which are, well, not regularly in the news because of hacks. So that's something which we'll have to work on. How we do that is by also sharing the learnings, sharing postmortems in order to build more robust building blocks. Safe is one of them. And then it's about gradually onboarding, step by step, increasing security, step by step, transitioning over users from the more traditional world to from something more centralized to something more with more self-custodian nature. So Safe is really also bullish on that concept of hybrid custody, because we do understand that not everyone wants to manage their own keys. It's actually scary to do that, and eventually we believe that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, and also we also believe that we can create mechanisms where it's more of a you have this as a backup, but you don't require these centralized services to actually act. So it's more this additional factor which does checks, but you can always opt out or overrule and be like, no, I know, that service doesn't want to approve my transaction. I still want to execute. And so that way, that is actually a nice way of how we can connect both worlds. And I think this is, besides ensuring the robust security, it's the part about ensuring to improve UX, and security is definitely not a nice to have and a part of UX as well. And with Safe, we try to be a role model. We try to definitely be a driver here.
Yeah, and you guys certainly are from our vantage point. You guys are certainly leaders in the safety and security, sort of aspect here of crypto. Again, $100 billion of value basically being secured by Safe, and it's incredible. So, Toby, we are so grateful for not only you joining us on the podcast, but for all the great work that you guys are doing at Safe, protecting the industry, pushing things forward. Where can people learn more? Where do you guys kind of have a Twitter? Do you guys have a Telegram chat that you guys are super active in?
Yes. So website safe.global, global being the top level domain. We also are on Twitter. Handle is just safe. So really memorable. And also chat.safe.global. That's the entry point to our Discord. I think these are the three main channels that would help anyone get started with Safe, be it on the Safe World side of things or on the Safe Core side of things. Yes, or also if people want to learn more about the Safe Token and what we're doing with Safe DAO.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Toby, and everybody at home watching. Hope you enjoyed as much as we did. Come back same time, same place next week. We'll have some more awesome guests for you. Take care.